The rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the cracked pavement of downtown Chicago. It was one of those nights where the city felt colder than usual, the kind of night that made you question your choices and wonder if things would ever get better. Sarah Thompson stood under a flickering streetlight, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she tried to shield herself from the biting wind. Her thin jacket wasn't doing much to keep her warm, but it was all she had. She glanced at her phone again, hoping for some miracle. A text saying the bus was delayed or a rideshare app showing available drivers nearby. But there was nothing. Just silence. Sarah sighed deeply, running a hand through her damp hair. This was supposed to be a quick shift, just 3 hours cleaning offices after her late-night waitressing gig. But now, here she was, stuck miles away from home with no way to get back. Her old car had broken down weeks ago, and repairs were out of the question given her current financial situation. Public transportation had been her lifeline since then, but tonight, even that had failed her. She looked around, her eyes scanning the deserted streets. The neighborhood wasn't exactly known for being safe, especially at this hour. Shadows moved in alleyways, and distant sirens wailed faintly in the background. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, clutching her bag closer to her body. She hated feeling vulnerable like this, but what choice did she have? Calling a taxi was too expensive, and walking home wasn't an option. It was too far, and she didn't want to risk something happening along the way. Just as she was about to pull out her phone again and try calling a friend, even though she knew most of them were probably asleep by now, she noticed a sleek black sedan idling at the curb a few feet away. The car looked completely out of place in this part of town, its polished exterior gleaming despite the rain. For a moment, Sarah hesitated. Was someone waiting inside? Should she approach it? But before she could decide, the driver's window rolled down slowly, revealing a man seated behind the wheel. He was dressed impeccably, his tailored suit contrasting sharply with the gritty surroundings. His piercing blue eyes locked onto hers, and he spoke in a calm, measured tone. "Need a ride?" he asked, his voice carrying a warmth that caught Sarah off guard. For a split second, Sarah froze. Who was this guy? What was he doing here? Her mind raced with questions, fueled by years of caution drilled into her as a single mother trying to navigate life on her own. Strangers offering rides in fancy cars weren't exactly common occurrences, and she couldn't help but feel suspicious. Yet there was something about him, something genuine that made her pause. Maybe it was the way he held her gaze without flinching, or perhaps it was the lack of judgment in his expression. Whatever it was, it gave her just enough reassurance to consider his offer. Still, Sarah hesitated. I don't know," she stammered, glancing nervously at the empty street behind her. "Are you sure?" The man nodded, his lips curving into a slight smile. "It's pouring out here, and you look like you've had a long day. I promise. I'm not a serial killer," he added with a chuckle, clearly sensing her unease. There was a lightness in his tone that put her slightly more at ease, though her instincts still screamed at her to be careful. After a moment of internal debate, Sarah finally relented. She took a deep breath and stepped toward the car, opening the passenger door cautiously. As she slid into the seat, she couldn't help but notice how luxurious the interior was. The leather upholstery, the subtle scent of cologne lingering in the air, the quiet hum of the engine. It was worlds apart from anything she was used to, and for a brief moment she felt out of place, almost intimidated. "Thank you," she said softly, buckling her seatbelt. "I really appreciate this." "No problem," the man replied, shifting the car into gear. "My name's Daniel, by the way." "Sarah," she responded, offering a small smile. "Nice to meet you." As they pulled away from the curb, Sarah found herself sneaking glances at Daniel. He seemed focused on the road, his hands steady on the wheel, but there was an air of confidence about him that intrigued her. He didn't strike her as someone who belonged in this part of the city, or maybe it was just the contrast between his polished appearance and the rundown buildings outside the window that made him stand out so starkly. "So, where am I headed?" Daniel asked casually, breaking the silence. Sarah rattled off the address of her apartment complex, watching as he entered it into the GPS system mounted on the dashboard. As the directions began guiding them through the maze of streets, Daniel turned to her with a curious look. "What brings you out here this late at night?" he asked. "If you don't mind me asking." Sarah hesitated, unsure of how much to share. She wasn't accustomed to opening up to strangers, especially ones driving expensive cars. But something about Daniel's demeanor, his calm, non-judgmental presence, made her feel like she could trust him. Or maybe it was simply the exhaustion, talking. "I work 2 jobs," she admitted after a moment. "Waitress during the day, office cleaner at night. My car broke down a while ago, so I've been relying on buses and trains. Tonight I guess I missed the last one." Daniel nodded thoughtfully, his brow furrowing slightly. "That sounds tough," he said sincerely. "Do you always work these kinds of hours?" Sarah shrugged, trying to downplay the difficulty of her situation. "It's just life, you know? I've got 2 kids to take care of, and bills pile up faster than I can pay them off. So yeah, I do whatever it takes." There was a pause, and for a moment, Sarah worried she'd said too much. But Daniel didn't seem fazed. Instead, he asked another question, his tone gentle yet probing. "And their father? Is he involved?" Sarah shook her head, her jaw tightening involuntarily. "No, he left when my youngest was born. Haven't heard from him since." Daniel let out a low whistle, shaking his head sympathetically. "That must be hard. Raising kids on your own is no easy feat." "You have no idea," Sarah muttered under her breath, though loud enough for him to hear. She immediately regretted the comment, fearing she sounded bitter, but Daniel didn't react negatively. If anything, he seemed to understand. They continued talking as the car wound its way through the city, the conversation flowing surprisingly naturally, despite their vastly different circumstances. Daniel asked about her children, her dreams, and how she managed to juggle so many responsibilities. Sarah found herself opening up more than she intended, sharing stories of sleepless nights, financial struggles, and the constant worry that she wasn't doing enough for her kids. Throughout it all, Daniel listened intently, nodding occasionally, or offering words of encouragement. There was no pity in his gaze, only empathy and respect. And while Sarah couldn't shake the nagging thought that she was oversharing with a complete stranger, she also couldn't deny the relief she felt in unloading her burdens, even temporarily. By the time they reached her apartment complex, Sarah felt lighter somehow, as if the weight pressing down on her shoulders had eased just a fraction. Before stepping out of the car, she turned to Daniel, her gratitude evident in her expression. "Thank you so much for this," she said earnestly. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped." Daniel smiled warmly, dismissing her thanks with a wave of his hand. Then, unexpectedly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "If you ever need anything at all, don't hesitate to call." Sarah accepted the card, studying it briefly before tucking it into her pocket. "I will," she promised, though she doubted she'd ever actually use it. After all, people like Daniel didn't usually stay in touch with people like her. But, as she watched the sleek black sedan disappear into the rainy night, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter might mean more than she realized. Little did she know, Daniel Harper wasn't just any stranger. He was a millionaire, CEO, and their paths were destined to cross again in ways neither of them could have imagined. The drive to Sarah's apartment was quieter now, but the silence between them wasn't awkward. Instead, it felt comfortable, like they had known each other for years, rather than just a few minutes. Daniel occasionally glanced at Sarah as he navigated the streets, his expression thoughtful. He didn't seem to be in a hurry, and Sarah appreciated that. Most people would have dropped her off quickly and moved on with their lives, but Daniel seemed genuinely interested in hearing her story. "So," Daniel said after a while, breaking the soft hum of the car's engine, "what keeps you going? I mean, with everything you're juggling, how do you stay positive?" Sarah hesitated, taken aback by the question. No one had ever asked her that before, not in such a direct way. People usually just nodded sympathetically or offered vague words of encouragement, but Daniel's curiosity felt deeper, more personal. She stared out the window for a moment, watching raindrops race down the glass, trying to put her feelings into words. I guess. I think about my kids, she finally replied, her voice softer now. They're the reason I keep pushing forward. I want them to have a better life than I did, to grow up knowing they can chase their dreams without worrying about money or anything else holding them back. Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes flickering between the road and Sarah. That's admirable, he said sincerely. A lot of people talk about wanting to change things for the next generation, but not everyone puts in the effort like you are. It takes guts to keep fighting when life feels like it's stacked against you. Sarah smiled faintly, though there was a hint of sadness behind it. It's not always easy, she admitted. Some days I feel like I'm failing them, like no matter how hard I work, it's never enough. And then I see moms who seem to have it all together. Careers, nice houses, vacations, and I wonder what I'm doing wrong. You're doing nothing wrong, Daniel interrupted firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Everyone's journey is different. Comparing yourself to others only makes things harder. Trust me, I've been there. Sarah raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Really? You don't strike me as someone who struggles. Daniel chuckled softly, the sound carrying a note of self-awareness. Looks can be deceiving, he said. Sure, I've built a successful company, but success doesn't shield you from challenges. If anything, it creates new ones. Stress, expectations, loneliness, it's not all glamorous limousines and corner offices. His honesty caught Sarah off guard. She had assumed Daniel lived a charmed life, free from the worries that plagued her every day. Hearing him admit otherwise made her realize they weren't so different after all. Both of them were just trying to navigate their own storms, albeit in very different worlds. As they approached her apartment complex, Sarah noticed Daniel slowing down earlier than expected. He pulled over near the entrance, parking neatly under a dim street lamp. Turning off the engine, he turned to face her fully, his expression serious yet kind. Before you go, he began, leaning back slightly in his seat. Can I ask you something? Of course, Sarah replied, curious about where this was heading. What's your dream? Daniel asked simply. Not for your kids, for you. What do you want out of life? Sarah blinked, momentarily stunned. She hadn't thought about her own dreams in years, not since becoming a mother. Her focus had shifted entirely to providing for her children, and somewhere along the way her aspirations had faded into the background. Now, faced with Daniel's question, she struggled to articulate an answer. I don't know, she admitted quietly. I used to love writing, stories, poems, little things like that. But life got busy and I stopped. Honestly, I haven't thought about it in ages. Daniel nodded, absorbing her response. Well, maybe it's time to start. Thinking about it again, he suggested gently. You deserve to chase something that makes you happy, Sarah. Your kids will benefit from seeing their mom pursue her passions too. His words lingered in the air, resonating deeply within her. For the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival, a future where she could rediscover the joy she once found in creativity. The thought was both exciting and terrifying, but Daniel's unwavering belief in her gave her courage. After a long pause, Sarah cleared her throat and changed the subject. What about you? She asked, tilting her head slightly. What drives you? Daniel leaned back in his seat, considering the question. Honestly, purpose, he answered. When I started my company, it wasn't just about making money. I wanted to create opportunities for people, to show them that hard work and determination can lead to great things. Seeing employees grow, thrive, and build better lives for themselves, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Sarah listened intently, marveling at the passion in his voice. It was clear that Daniel cared deeply about his work, not just as a means to accumulate wealth, but as a way to make a difference. His perspective reminded her of her own desire to provide stability and hope for her children. Well, she said with a small laugh, You must be pretty good at what you do if you can afford a car like this." Daniel grinned, clearly amused by her comment. "Let's just say I've been lucky," he replied modestly. "But luck doesn't last forever. You have to keep working at it, staying focused on your goals." Their conversation continued for several more minutes, touching on topics ranging from parenting to hobbies to favorite books. By the time Sarah realized how late it was, she felt a strange mix of emotions: gratefulness for Daniel's kindness, admiration for his wisdom, and a lingering sense of unease about their vastly different lives. How could someone like him possibly relate to someone like her? Finally, reluctantly, Sarah reached for the door handle. "Thank you again for the ride," she said, turning to face him. "And for listening. Not many people would take the time to hear me out like you did." "It was my pleasure," Daniel responded warmly. Before she could step out, he added, "Remember what I said. If you need anything, call me. I mean it." Sarah nodded, clutching his business card tightly in her hand. "I'll keep that in mind," she promised, though she still doubted she'd actually use it. As she stepped out of the car and watched Daniel drive away, she couldn't shake the feeling that their paths might cross again someday. Over the next few weeks, Sarah tried to push the encounter to the back of her mind. Life went on as usual: long shifts, endless chores, and the constant struggle to make ends meet. But Daniel's words stayed with her, replaying in her thoughts during quiet moments. His questions about her dreams haunted her, forcing her to confront the parts of herself she had neglected for far too long. One evening, as she tucked her youngest child into bed, Sarah found herself staring at a blank notebook she had bought months ago but never used. Her fingers itched to write, to pour her emotions onto the page and see what came out. Taking a deep breath, she picked up a pen and began scribbling. At first, the words were clumsy and disjointed, but soon they flowed freely, capturing fragments of her experiences, fears, and hopes. For the first time in years, Sarah felt alive in a way she hadn't expected. Writing became her escape, her therapy, her reminder that she was more than just a single mother scraping by. And though she didn't realize it yet, this newfound passion would play a crucial role in shaping her future. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Sarah, Daniel hadn't forgotten about her either. Back in his penthouse office overlooking the city skyline, he often found himself reflecting on their conversation. There was something about Sarah's resilience and authenticity that stuck with him, reminding him of the values he held dear. He admired her strength, her determination, and her ability to find beauty in the midst each year. Weeks turned into months, and life for Sarah continued much as it always had: early mornings, late nights, and endless juggling between work and family. But something inside her had shifted. The notebook she'd started writing in became a lifeline, a place where she could escape the chaos of her daily routine and reconnect with a part of herself she thought she'd lost forever. She filled page after page with stories inspired by her experiences, her children, and even snippets of her conversations with Daniel. Writing gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years, and though she didn't share her work with anyone, it brought her a quiet kind of happiness. Still, reality was never far behind. One evening, as Sarah tucked her youngest son, Ethan, into bed, she noticed he seemed unusually pale. "Are you feeling okay, buddy?" she asked gently, brushing his hair back from his forehead. Ethan shook his head weakly, murmuring that his stomach hurt. Alarmed, Sarah called their pediatrician first thing the next morning, only to discover that Ethan needed tests and potentially surgery to address what might be a serious issue. The news hit Sarah like a ton of bricks. As a single mother living paycheck to paycheck, the idea of medical bills on top of everything else felt insurmountable. She spent hours researching payment plans, charities, and anything else that might help, but the numbers were overwhelming. Desperation clawed at her chest as she tried to figure out how she would afford the care her son desperately needed. That's when she remembered Daniel's business card. It had been sitting untouched in her drawer since the night they met, a relic of an encounter she often replayed in her mind but rarely acted upon. Now, staring at the card, Sarah felt conflicted. Reaching out to him felt like admitting defeat. like asking for charity she wasn't sure she deserved. But what choice did she have? Her son's health came before her pride. Taking a deep breath, Sarah dialed the number. To her surprise, Daniel answered almost immediately. His voice was calm and familiar, instantly putting her at ease. "Sarah, is everything all right?" She hesitated, unsure of how to begin. "Hi, Daniel. I'm sorry to bother you. I know it's been a while since we talked, but I need your help." There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by a soft, reassuring tone. "Of course, Sarah, tell me what's going on." As she explained Ethan's condition and the financial strain it was causing, Sarah fought back tears, embarrassed by her vulnerability. But Daniel listened patiently, interrupting only to ask clarifying questions. When she finished, he didn't hesitate. "I'll take care of it," he said firmly. "Don't worry about a thing." "No, Daniel, I can't let you do that," Sarah protested, shaking her head even though he couldn't see her. "This is my responsibility." "Nonsense," Daniel replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You've done more than enough on your own. Let me help. Consider it repayment for all the inspiration you gave me that night." Before Sarah could respond, he added, "I'll meet you at the hospital tomorrow morning. We'll sort this out together." True to his word, Daniel arrived at the hospital the next day, impeccably dressed as always, carrying a briefcase. He greeted Sarah warmly, then handed her a folder filled with paperwork. Inside were documents ensuring that Ethan's medical expenses would be fully covered, no strings attached. Sarah stared at the papers, stunned into silence. Her heart swelled with gratitude but also guilt. "Daniel, I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But this is too much." "It's not too much," Daniel interrupted gently. "And you don't need to thank me. Just focus on Ethan. He's the priority right now." Over the following weeks, Ethan underwent the necessary procedures, and thanks to Daniel's intervention, the financial burden was lifted entirely. Sarah threw herself into caring for her son, grateful beyond words for the kindness shown to her. During one of their visits to the hospital cafeteria, Daniel joined her for coffee, eager to check in on how things were progressing. As they sat together, Sarah finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been weighing on her mind. "Why are you doing this, Daniel?" she asked quietly, stirring sugar into her cup. "I mean, we barely know each other. You didn't have to step in like this." Daniel leaned back in his chair, considering her question carefully. "To be honest, Sarah, meeting you reminded me of something important. Life isn't just about climbing ladders or chasing success. It's about connection. Helping others reminds us of our humanity. And frankly, I admire you. You've faced challenges most people wouldn't dream of handling, yet you keep going. That takes strength." Sarah blushed, uncomfortable with the praise. "I'm just doing what any parent would do," she mumbled. "No," Daniel corrected her. "Not everyone would handle it with the grace and determination you've shown. You're remarkable, Sarah. Don't underestimate yourself." His words lingered in her mind long after their conversation ended. For the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was capable of more than she thought. A few days later, Daniel invited Sarah to meet him for coffee again, this time at a cozy cafe near his office. When she arrived, he greeted her with a warm smile, motioning for her to sit across from him. There was a seriousness in his demeanor that made Sarah curious and slightly nervous. "I've been thinking," Daniel began, leaning forward slightly, "about you, your situation, and how I might be able to help, not just financially, but in a way that gives you real opportunities." Sarah frowned, unsure of what he meant. "Opportunities?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, you're smart, resourceful, and incredibly hardworking. Those are qualities I value highly in my team. What if I offered you a job? Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I genuinely think you'd excel." Sarah blinked, caught off guard. "A job? Doing what?" "As my personal assistant," Daniel explained. "I need someone who can manage schedules, coordinate projects, and handle communications. It's demanding work, but I think you'd be perfect for it. Plus, the pay would give you some breathing room, and there's potential for growth within the company." Sarah stared at him, her mind racing. The offer sounded incredible, a chance to break free from the endless cycle of low-wage jobs, but doubt crept in almost immediately. "I don't have any experience in corporate work," she admitted. "I wouldn't even know where to start." "That's why I'd mentor you," Daniel assured her. "We'd work closely together and I'd teach you everything you need to know. You already have the skills that matter most: problem-solving, adaptability, and integrity. Everything else is learnable." Sarah hesitated, torn between excitement and fear. This was a huge leap, one that could change her life, but it also felt risky. What if she failed? What if she disappointed Daniel? Seeing the uncertainty in her eyes, Daniel softened his tone. "Think about it, Sarah. You don't have to decide right away, but I truly believe in you. Sometimes taking a chance is the only way to move forward." That night, Sarah lay awake, replaying Daniel's words. In her mind, she thought about the endless sacrifices she'd made for her children, the dreams she'd put on hold, and the exhaustion that had become her constant companion. Wasn't it time to try something new? To trust herself and Daniel enough to take a leap of faith? The next morning, she called Daniel. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Thank you for believing in me." Daniel's response was simple but heartfelt. "You won't regret it, Sarah. This is just the beginning." And so, Sarah stepped into a world she never imagined for herself. At first, the transition was daunting. The corporate environment was intimidating, the pace relentless, and the terminology confusing. But Daniel was true to his word, guiding her every step of the way. He taught her how to navigate meetings, prioritize tasks, and communicate effectively with executives. More importantly, he encouraged her to speak up, to share her ideas, and to trust her instincts. Slowly but surely, Sarah began to thrive. Her natural ability to connect with people made her invaluable in client interactions, and her knack for organization ensured that Daniel's schedule ran smoothly. Over time, she gained confidence, not just in her abilities, but in her worth. For the first time in years, she felt like she was contributing something meaningful, both to her family and to the world around her. But success wasn't without its challenges. Some colleagues whispered behind her back, accusing her of getting the job because of favoritism rather than merit. Others dismissed her ideas, assuming she lacked the knowledge to contribute meaningfully. Sarah struggled with self-doubt, wondering if she truly belonged in such a high-powered environment. Through it all, Daniel remained steadfast in his support. "Ignore the noise," he told her during one particularly tough week. "Focus on the work. Your value isn't determined by what others say, it's determined by what you bring to the table." His advice resonated deeply, and Sarah resolved to prove her critics wrong. She poured herself into her role, learning quickly and exceeding expectations. Within months, she had earned the respect of her peers and solidified her place within the company. As Sarah settled into her new life, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she'd come. From standing under that flickering streetlight in the rain to managing the operations of a multi-million-dollar corporation, her journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. And while she knew there would still be obstacles ahead, she faced them with a newfound sense of Sarah's first year working for Daniel was a whirlwind of learning, growth, and self-discovery. At times, it felt like she was running a marathon without proper training. Every step pushed her to her limits, but she refused to give up. The corporate world was unlike anything she'd ever experienced before. Gone were the days of scrubbing office floors late at night or balancing trays as a waitress. Now, she spent her hours managing schedules, coordinating high-stakes meetings, and ensuring that Daniel's vision for the company stayed on track. At first, Sarah doubted herself constantly. She worried about making mistakes, feared being judged by colleagues, and questioned whether she truly belonged in such an elite environment. But Daniel's unwavering support helped her push through those insecurities. He didn't just mentor her, he believed in her, even when she struggled to believe in herself. "You're capable of more than you realize," he would say whenever she expressed doubts. "Trust the process and trust yourself." Over time, Sarah began to internalize his words. With each challenge she overcame, her confidence grew. She learned how to navigate complex projects, communicate effectively with executives, and anticipate Daniel's needs before he voiced them. Her natural problem-solving skills, honed from years of juggling multiple jobs and responsibilities, proved invaluable in her new role. Colleagues who had initially dismissed her started to take notice of her contributions, and soon she became an indispensable part of the team. But success wasn't handed to her. It came with hard work, long hours, and sacrifices. Balancing. Her demanding job with raising 2 children was no easy feat. There were mornings when she woke up exhausted, wondering if she could keep going, and evenings when guilt gnawed at her for missing bedtime stories or school events. Yet, despite the challenges, Sarah found joy in knowing that her efforts were creating a better future for her family. Every paycheck meant fewer sleepless nights worrying about bills. Every promotion brought her closer to financial stability, and every achievement reminded her that she was capable of far more than she'd ever imagined. As Sarah rose through the ranks, Daniel continued to advocate for her. When opportunities arose within the company, he encouraged her to apply, assuring her that she was ready for bigger responsibilities. His faith in her abilities gave her the courage to step outside her comfort zone and embrace new challenges. Slowly but surely, Sarah transitioned from being Daniel's personal assistant to taking on leadership roles within the organization. One of her proudest moments came when Daniel appointed her as head of operations for one of the company's key divisions. It was a monumental leap, one that placed her in charge of overseeing entire teams and multi-million-dollar projects. The responsibility was daunting, but Sarah approached it with the same determination and resilience she'd always relied on. She poured herself into understanding every aspect of the division, from logistics to client relations, determined to prove that she deserved the position. Her leadership style quickly set her apart. Unlike some of her peers, who ruled with authority and distance, Sarah led with empathy and collaboration. She made it a point to listen to her team members, valuing their input and encouraging open communication. She celebrated their successes and supported them through failures, fostering a culture of trust and mutual respect. Under her guidance, the division flourished, exceeding targets and earning recognition within the industry. Despite her achievements, Sarah faced criticism along the way. Rumors circulated among colleagues, many of whom resented her rapid ascent. Some accused her of relying on Daniel's favoritism to climb the ladder, while others dismissed her accomplishments as mere luck. These whispers stung, especially since Sarah worked tirelessly to earn her place. But instead of letting negativity consume her, she focused on proving her worth through action. She doubled down on her efforts, delivering results that silenced even her harshest critics. Through it all, Sarah remained grounded. She never forgot where she came from. The struggles of her past shaped her perspective and fueled her drive to succeed. On tough days, she reminded herself of the single mother, standing under the flickering streetlight, desperate for a ride home. Those memories kept her humble and motivated, pushing her to continue striving for excellence. Away from work, Sarah prioritized spending quality time with her children. Though her schedule was busier than ever, she made sure to carve out moments for them. Whether it was helping them with homework, cooking dinner together, or simply talking about their day, her kids noticed the changes in their lives, not just financially but emotionally. Seeing their mom thrive inspired them, teaching them the value of perseverance and ambition. Meanwhile, Sarah's relationship with Daniel evolved into something deeper, a friendship built on mutual respect and admiration. They often discussed their goals, challenges, and dreams during quiet moments between meetings or over coffee. Daniel confided in her about his own struggles, sharing how losing his wife years earlier had left him feeling disconnected from life. In turn, Sarah opened up about her fears and aspirations, finding solace in his understanding. "You've changed." "My perspective, Sarah," Daniel admitted one evening as they reviewed plans for an upcoming project. "Meeting you reminded me of what truly matters. Success isn't just about numbers or accolades. It's about people. You've taught me that." Sarah smiled, touched by his words. "And you've given me a chance to rewrite my story," she replied softly. "I'll never be able to repay you for that." Daniel shook his head, his expression sincere. "You already have. By proving that kindness can create ripples of change, you've repaid me tenfold." As the months passed, Sarah began to dream, bigger. Writing, which had once been a private escape, became a source of inspiration for her professional life. She started incorporating storytelling techniques into presentations, using narratives to engage clients and motivate her team. Her creativity earned praise from colleagues and solidified her reputation as a leader who thought outside the box. Eventually, Sarah decided to share her journey publicly. She wrote articles about overcoming adversity, spoke at conferences about the importance of resilience, and advocated for programs supporting single parents. Her message resonated with audiences, inspiring countless individuals facing similar challenges. For Sarah, giving back became a way to honor the kindness Daniel had shown her, and to remind others that they too could rise above their circumstances. Looking back, Sarah marveled at how much her life had transformed. From struggling to make ends meet to leading a division in a prestigious company, her journey was proof that opportunities could come from unexpected places. And while she knew she still had a long way to go, she faced the future with optimism and determination. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person believing in you to spark a chain reaction of change. For Sarah, that person was Daniel Harper. And, together they were building not just careers but legacies rooted in compassion, resilience, and hope. Years had passed since that rainy night when Sarah first climbed into Daniel's car, unsure of what the future held. Now, standing on stage at a glittering charity gala hosted by Harper Tech, she felt a wave of emotions sweep over her: gratitude, pride, and a deep sense of fulfillment. The room buzzed with energy as guests mingled under crystal chandeliers, their laughter blending with soft jazz music playing in the background. But tonight wasn't just about celebrating success. It was about recognizing those who were making a difference. Sarah adjusted the microphone before addressing the crowd, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. "Thank you all for being here," she began, scanning the sea of faces. "This award means more to me than I can put into words. It's not just an acknowledgement of my work, it's a reminder of how far I've come and the people who helped me get here." Her gaze landed on Daniel, seated near the front row, his expression warm and encouraging. He nodded slightly, urging her to continue. Taking a deep breath, Sarah launched into her story, sharing the struggles she faced as a single mother and the pivotal moment when a stranger's kindness changed everything. "I didn't think much of that ride home that night," she admitted, her tone reflective. "I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and just grateful someone stopped to help. But looking back, it wasn't just a ride. It was the beginning of a journey I never could have imagined." She recounted how Daniel's belief in her opened doors she thought were permanently closed. From covering her son's medical expenses to offering her a job that transformed her career, he had been a constant source of support. His mentorship taught her skills she never dreamed of mastering, while his encouragement gave her the confidence to pursue dreams she'd long abandoned. "But this isn't just my story," Sarah emphasized, her voice growing stronger. "It's a testament to the power of kindness and connection. One act of generosity can create ripples that touch countless lives. That's why I'm so passionate about giving back, because I know firsthand how much it matters." The initiative Sarah spearheaded, called Rising Together, aimed to empower single parents through education, mentorship, and financial assistance. Inspired by her own experiences, she worked tirelessly to build partnerships with schools, businesses, and community organizations, creating pathways for others to achieve stability and success. The program had already impacted hundreds of families, providing scholarships, childcare support, and career training to help them break free from cycles of poverty. As Sarah spoke, her words resonated deeply with the audience. Many nodded in agreement, some wiping away tears while others scribbled notes inspired to contribute to similar causes. Her authenticity shone through every sentence, reminding everyone present of the resilience and strength found in communities coming together. After concluding her speech, Sarah stepped down from the stage to thunderous applause. People lined up to congratulate her, shaking her hand and thanking her for her inspiring message. Among them was Daniel, who greeted her with a proud smile. "You did great," he said, pulling her aside for a private moment. "Your passion shines brighter than ever." "Thank you," Sarah replied, her eyes glistening with emotion. "But none of this would have happened without you. You saved me when I needed it most." Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, Sarah. You saved me. Don't underestimate the impact you've had on my life." Confused, Sarah tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "After losing my wife, I threw myself into work, convinced it was the only way to cope. I built walls around me, shutting out emotions and connections. Meeting you reminded me of the importance of human relationships, the joy of helping others, the beauty of shared experiences. You brought light back into my life when I thought I'd lost it forever." Sarah blinked, taken aback by his admission. She had always assumed Daniel's kindness stemmed from his wealth and status, never considering that he might also be searching for meaning. In that moment, she realized their bond went beyond employer and employee. They were two people who had healed each other in ways neither fully understood until now. The evening continued with heartfelt conversations, networking opportunities, and fundraising efforts that exceeded expectations. By the end of the night, thousands of dollars had been raised to expand Rising Together's reach, ensuring even more families would benefit from its programs. Over the following months, Sarah dedicated herself to expanding the initiative, traveling across the country to speak at conferences, collaborate with policymakers, and advocate for systemic change. Her story became a beacon of hope for struggling parents, proving that transformation was possible with determination and support. At the same time, Daniel remained a steadfast ally, using his influence to amplify Sarah's mission. Together, they launched new initiatives within Harper Tech, prioritizing diversity, inclusion, and employee well-being. Their partnership evolved into something greater, a shared commitment to leaving the world better than they found it. For Sarah, life finally felt balanced. Her children thrived in school, proud of their mom's accomplishments and inspired by her example. Writing, once a private hobby, became a published collection of essays titled Through the Storm, chronicling her journey and offering advice to others facing adversity. Readers praised her honesty and vulnerability, hailing her as a voice of resilience and empowerment. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sarah stood outside her childhood home, where she had grown up in hardship, but also discovered her inner strength. Holding Ethan's hand and watching her daughter laugh with friends nearby, she reflected on how far she'd come. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. "Mom, are you okay?" Ethan asked, tugging gently at her sleeve. Sarah smiled, kneeling to meet his gaze. "I'm perfect, sweetheart. Better than perfect." That night, as she tucked her kids into bed, Sarah whispered a silent thank you to the universe for the challenges that shaped her, the kindness that lifted her, and the love that sustained her. She knew life would always have its ups and downs, but she faced the future unafraid, knowing she had the tools and the community to overcome anything. Because sometimes asking for help isn't weakness, it's the first step toward transformation. And for Sarah Thompson, that transformation had turned a single act of kindness into a legacy of hope, resilience, and boundless possibility. As the years rolled on, Sarah's life continued to evolve in ways she could never have predicted. Her journey wasn't just about personal success or professional achievements. It was about creating a ripple effect that touched countless lives. Yet amidst all the accolades and milestones, there was still so much more to her story. The seeds of change she had planted were beginning to blossom, and their impact reached far beyond what she or anyone else could have imagined. One crisp spring morning, Sarah found herself standing in front of a packed auditorium at a local university. She had been invited to deliver the keynote address for their annual Women in Leadership Conference, an honor she hadn't anticipated when she first started sharing her story. Looking out at the sea of eager faces, many of them young, women seeking guidance and inspiration, Sarah felt a surge of responsibility. These were people who looked up to her, not because of where she was now, but because of where she had come from. Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons we didn't know we needed. She began, her voice steady yet warm. When I was younger, I thought success meant having everything figured out. But the truth is, none of us ever do. What matters is how we respond to the challenges we face, and whether we allow ourselves to grow through them. She went on to share not just her triumphs, but also her failures, the times she doubted herself, the moments she wanted to give up, and the days when simply getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. She spoke candidly about the fear of judgment, the weight of societal expectations, and the constant balancing act of being both a mother and a professional. But most importantly, she emphasized the importance of resilience, self-belief, and leaning on others during tough times. When you're struggling, she said, pausing to make eye contact with someone in the front row, remember this: you are stronger than you think. And if you can't see your own strength, find someone who believes in you until you learn to believe in yourself. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, sparking murmurs of agreement and quiet nods throughout the room. After the speech, dozens of attendees lined up to speak with her, sharing their own stories and thanking her for giving them hope. One young woman, barely out of college, approached Sarah with tears streaming down her face. "Your story saved me," she whispered. "I didn't think I could keep going, but hearing how you overcame everything, it makes me feel like maybe I can too." Moments like these reminded Sarah why she did what she did. It wasn't about fame or recognition, it was about connection. Every person she inspired became part of a larger tapestry, woven together by shared struggles and collective victories. Through Rising Together, Sarah's initiative had grown into a nationwide movement, partnering with schools, nonprofits, and corporations to provide resources and opportunities for single parents. Thousands of families had benefited from scholarships, mentorship programs, and financial literacy workshops, breaking cycles of poverty and building brighter futures. But as impactful as Rising Together was, Sarah knew there was still work to be done. She often thought back to the early days of her career, when she faced skepticism and criticism from colleagues who doubted her abilities. Those experiences fueled her determination to create workplaces that valued diversity, inclusion, and empathy. With Daniel's support, she spearheaded internal reforms within Harper Tech, implementing policies that prioritized employee well-being and fostered a culture of belonging. Under her leadership, Harper Tech launched initiatives such as flexible work hours, parental leave benefits, and mental health resources. They also established partnerships with organizations dedicated to training underrepresented groups for careers in technology. These efforts earned the company widespread praise, solidifying its reputation as a leader in corporate social responsibility. Employees reported higher job satisfaction, and retention rates soared as workers felt genuinely supported and valued. Despite her growing influence, Sarah remained grounded. She made it a point to stay connected to the community that shaped her, regularly visiting shelters and food banks to volunteer her time. On weekends, she hosted writing workshops for aspiring authors, encouraging them to tell their stories and find healing through creativity. Her published collection of essays, Through the Storm, had become a bestseller, with readers praising its raw honesty and relatable insights. Book clubs across the country adopted it as required reading, sparking conversations about resilience, vulnerability, and the power of human connection. Meanwhile, Daniel continued to play a pivotal role in Sarah's life, not just as a mentor, but as a dear friend. Their bond had deepened over the years, built on mutual respect, trust, and a shared vision for a better world. Though neither of them sought anything romantic, their relationship served as a reminder that true partnerships are rooted in collaboration and understanding. Together, they proved that kindness and compassion could transcend boundaries, bridging gaps between vastly different worlds. One summer evening, as they sat on Daniel's rooftop terrace overlooking the city skyline, Sarah turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met that night?" she asked, swirling her glass of lemonade. Daniel chuckled softly, leaning back in his chair. All the time, he admitted. But then I remind myself that it wasn't just luck, it was timing. We were both ready for something new, even if we didn't realize it at the time. Sarah nodded, gazing out at the horizon painted in hues of orange and pink. It's funny how life works, isn't it? Two strangers crossing paths, completely unaware of how much they'll mean to each other. They sat in companionable silence, for a while, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. For Sarah, it was a testament to the idea that no act of kindness is ever wasted. That one simple gesture, a ride home on a rainy night, had set off a chain reaction of transformation, not just for her, but for everyone whose lives she touched along the way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in a golden glow, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. She had spent years chasing stability, security, and success, but now she realized that true fulfillment came from something deeper: purpose. By dedicating herself to helping others, she had discovered a joy that transcended material wealth or professional accolades. It was the joy of knowing she was making a difference, however small, in the grand tapestry of humanity. In the years that followed, Sarah's legacy only grew stronger. Rising Together expanded internationally, reaching countries where single-parent households faced even greater challenges. Schools named scholarships after her, communities erected monuments in her honor, and generations of children grew up hearing her name as a symbol of hope and perseverance. Her story became a beacon for anyone who felt lost or overlooked, reminding them that they too could rise above their circumstances. Yet despite all the recognition, Sarah stayed true to her roots. She never forgot the lessons she learned as a struggling single mother, the value of hard work, the importance of humility, and the transformative power of kindness. Even as she achieved greatness, she remained the same resilient, compassionate woman who once stood under a flickering streetlight, hoping for a miracle. Because sometimes, miracles come in unexpected forms. For Sarah Thompson, that miracle was Daniel Harper, a stranger turned ally, a mentor turned friend, and ultimately a partner in changing the world. Together, they proved that when people unite with a shared purpose, there's no limit to what they can achieve. And so Sarah's story didn't end. It evolved, branching out into countless lives and leaving behind a legacy of love, hope, and boundless possibility. Because the greatest journeys aren't measured by destinations. They're defined by the connections we forge and the lives we touch along the way.